Today we are going to be reading The Infinity Dilemma. Okay, let's begin. Father! Screamed Cornelia as she awoke with her barely clear vision. She scanned her surroundings. She attempted to get up to move, but even with all her might, she fell back down coughing. Another voice called, "Over here!" Cornelia awakes to find her wounds tended to. She looks around and notices strange carvings on the walls. Strange, don't these inhabitants know who I am? Cornelia asks herself. An elderly man walks in. I see you have made a quick recovery. Impressive for such a lass at your age. Sure, use my age as the reason I've been out of commission for a short time. At that rate, why not invite everyone to gawk and awe at my figure while you are at it? Cornelia said. The elder laughed. Ah, you remind me of a man I met when I was but a voice in people's heads. You see, I used to talk to all kinds of people from this planet called Earth. It was fun, though there was this other man who was quite a troublemaker who hailed from a great empire. What was his name again? Cornelia replied, You are a strange old man. I don't have time for this. She attempts to get up but falls back down and lifts her head weakly towards the elder. The elder chuckles lightly and helps her up. It is time you heard the story of the great sacrifice. Cornelia sighed heavily. This is gonna be a long day, isn't it? The elder takes a deep breath while Cornelia rolls her eyes. The elder shares his story. Within a couple minutes, Cornelia interrupts. Your story is great and all, old man, but I could tell you an even better one. But I need an audience. After all, I want everyone to hear this story. Why would you need an audience, and why should I grant your request? The elder inquired. Because I know who you really are. You are no elder. You really think my father didn't tell me about you? You really thought you could convince me to change my ways, as if my ways need changing rather than adaptation. The elder's smile turned to a frown, a faint frown. Cornelia laughed. You don't have the guts. You're not my father. Such a terrible act, you wouldn't know what to do with yourself. Cornelia racked with pain as the elder stretched his hand out. Do it! Cornelia hissed. The elder sensed something in Cornelia that made him pull his hand away. Mercy is not a weakness, the elder said. Cornelia got up. That is what I thought. Good for you. Now get my audience ready, Cornelia responded. As you wish, said the elder. A sizable audience gathers to hear Cornelia's story. So you've heard the elder's story. Let me tell you one of my own. I lost a father, a mentor. I am grieved that the story being told is not of my father's sacrifice, so here is the truth. My father was not the cruel person many thought he was. He loved his subjects very much. So I ask you, elder, as you call yourself, where is Emperor? The crowd gasped and turned to the elder. The elder had no response. He could clearly see the room turned against him. He knew he was beat, so he vanished into a mist. Cornelia smiled and spoke more to the crowd. They were hanging on her every word as she told them that they would be not only part of something bigger than themselves, they would also be well taken care of. Cornelia singled out of the crowd 7 members with leadership capabilities and mentoring experience. The seven were given instructions and their respective roles by Cornelia herself. Cornelia and her trainees were relocated to an island off to the dense distance. They took ships that were procured from the local shipmaster. The shipmaster was more than accommodating, and it was clear to him Cornelia meant business. I would not take no for an answer. He was promised future compensation for granting Cornelia and her cohorts usage of his ships. On the island, which Cornelia named Victorious Flames, after her old toy ship her father gave her, she still had the toy ship on her person, but she would never show or admit to anyone that she carried such a memento. The island was big enough to hold the ships docked there, as well as the crowd Cornelia had gathered. Fellow men and women, this is your first step into history. Together we will avenge my father, and to all those whose families have been cruelly stripped away. Cornelia gestured to the seven to begin training. She named them commanders and granted them each a badge to symbolize their office. She just so happened to have 7 badges on her person, each one from a time forgotten. Cornelia smiled as she toured the training grounds. One of the few moments of her resurrected life. She actually felt hope. One night she looked up at the starry sky when she was alone. Tears ran down her eyes. She missed her father. She missed his comforting smile, his hand caressing her cheek, telling her it is okay. Emperor may have been a loose cannon at times, but to Cornelia, there was no doubt he loved her and always gave her the world. She was his world, and he was hers, and she would continue fighting for him even when she couldn't feel his presence anymore. These private moments for Cornelia felt like life and death. If it was not for these moments, she would have broken down a long time ago. In the morning, Cornelia would wake up and observe and oversee the 7 commanders. She was stern. She had to be. She is their leader, their superior, their empress. The 7 commanders took notes on their progress and handed these notes to her. After a while, Cornelia appointed a secretary, a woman named Mila. Mila had raven black hair and was well dressed and groomed. Mila's father was one of the 7 commanders. Cornelia and Mila got along, and Cornelia even confided in her some secrets she would never tell her 7 commanders. Mila assured Cornelia that her secrets would go with her to the grave. Mila and Cornelia got along very well and would be closely linked. When the training was finished, Cornelia had a following of loyal officers and soldiers that will follow her to the ends of the earth. Regal put down the levitated rock in frustration, his face sweating as the rock dropped and the aura around the giant rock dissipated. Damon turns to Regal and flies in to hug him. Ah! Regal looks surprised. It's okay. You'll get that rock next time, Damon smiled. Regal chuckled. My greatest challenge yet. He said this as he sat down on a chair he manifested. The aura powers were quite challenging, but flicking his fingers and making objects appear was fun. Damon said curiously, how do you actually do that? Regal replied, I've never really thought about it. It's something innate to me. One of Emperor's gifts, I suppose. One of Emperor's gifts, I guess. He said Emperor with a hint of tragedy and sorrow written on his face. Damon noticed Regal's sorrow and said, You're not him. You could be anything you set your mind to. Don't forget that. Regal laughed. Am I that obvious? I gotta work on that. Can't give away all my secrets. He stretched out and pats Damon on the head. An elderly man materializes in front of Regal and Damon. Regal and Damon are shocked at the intrusion, and Regal uses his aura to call upon Shadow Lugia. Regal discovers his aura power has been temporarily disabled, and quickly points the finger at the Elder. "What have you done?" Regal demanded. "You were going to give orders to stop me, weren't you?" Elder said with a slight frown on his face. "That was old me. I would have had Lugia use the gust sending you flying," Regal said with assertion. The Elder rolled his eyes. "What an emperor thing to do! You've changed very little. Yet you must change, because if you don't, this world will belong to the Infinity Empire." Regal gasped, and so did Damon. The Elder sighed. "We have a lot to catch up on." Cornelia gets a successful transmission from one of the factions of the Infinity Empire. After long and frustrating work, she has finally succeeded. She was greeted by a familiar voice. It was General Orion. Cornelia knew his ancestor when she was very young. She could tell because Orion's voice was familiar, a very soft-spoken, distinct tone. The only noble family she knew with that tone was House Fairfax. According to the transmission, House Fairfax rose to command a significant portion of the military might of the Infinity Empire. Cornelia pondered carefully when sending out a message back. She knew that she could not afford to address them as a lesser house like she did back when she was a princess. So she informed them of the benefits of kneeling before their soon-to-be empress. She invited House Fairfax to her island to discuss the matter more personally. A few minutes passed, and an elegant starship appeared out of the sky, landing where Cornelia specified. Out of the ship came a man dressed in navy blue, with gold trimmings and decorated with medals and esteem. He had gray and blonde hair slicked back. Cornelia gestured to General Orion Fairfax to take a seat at a table she set up. He sat, and Cornelia sat as well. Mila was there taking notes as two soldiers brought food for both Cornelia and Orion. "Your Imperial Radiance. I got your message and I had to see for myself. It seems I was mistaken. I thought you were a pretender, but you are Cornelia, heiress to the imperial throne, rightful ruler of the whole Infinity Empire." Orion bowed his head in respect and ate from the delicious dish. He smiled in delight. "You do me great honor. Last time I saw your ancestor, your house was of little importance. Since then, you've done well for yourselves. And when you align with me, I will not only allow you to keep your status, I'll elevate you even more." Cornelia replied, enjoying her food as well. The table conversation shifted to discussions about the future, and both sides were mutually satisfied. A punch rams into Elder's face, sending him flying into a nearby tree. "You sent Michaela here, knowing that she would be no match for Emperor." Tears streamed down Regal's face. His fist clenched as he rushed towards Elder for another beatdown. Elder blocks the rush with his own fist, and as Elder's fist collides with Regal's, it sends shockwaves, hurling Damon and even Shadow Lugia away from the vicinity. Elder said, "You don't understand. He did that to himself. His real name is Mason. If I didn't interview him, he would have been claimed by the Dark One." Regal's eyes started glowing a purple glow as he felt a rush of power. "The Dark One? The only Dark One I see is you. Now die!" Regal rushes in for another attack, this time putting his arms through Elder's chest. It was too late as Regal regained his composure, horrified at what he did. He pulls his arm out of Elder's chest. Regal says, looking down at himself, "You had no right. Mason deserved better. You are a monster." Elder slowly looks away. "I'm sorry. I did what I did to save Mason. In time you will understand. If you don't understand, you will become just like him." Elder dissipated into mist as Regal fell to his knees. So distraught that Damon and Shadalugia returned to Regal and tried to comfort him. Regal pushed away their attempts and fled far away, swiftly running as if his life depended on it. Regal ran to the highest point he could find, and then proceeded to jump, his eyes watering and sad, his expression certain, his emotions irreconcilable. Cornelia leaves with Orion Fairfax. "You are in charge while I'm gone, Mila. I have full confidence in your abilities." Cornelia put a hand on her shoulder, then proceeds on the starship with Orion. As soon as the starship left, the 7 commanders looked at Mila and murmured amongst themselves. Mila puffs up her chest and proceeds to speak. "Listen up. Your Empress has put me in charge of you lot, so here's how things are going to go." She rolls over a board with instructions. The 7 commanders laugh. One of the commanders speaks up, a man with a brown beard and brown hair. "You're going to command us? You sound too cutesy to even be our boss. Are you even an adult?" Mila looks at the insubordinate commander. "What's your name?" she calmly asked. "Winston. My name is Winston," the commander replied. "Guess what, Winston? I have a task for you. Since you think so highly of yourself, I want you to take me on." Mila looked serious. "Is that necessary?" Winston gulped. "You're right. Maybe you shouldn't be commander. If you can't even take me on in a fight, maybe I should choose your replacement." Mila smiled. Mila and Winston get into battle positions. Mila stands still, staring at Winston in anticipation. "All right, let's do this," Winston says as he lunges at her full force. Mila anticipates and dodges Winston. "Is that all?" "Commander, you could do better than that," Mila mocked. Winston charged again, with each strike getting more clumsy, more exhausted, more reckless. Mila slides to the left swiftly as Winston falls into some deep water. Winston cries out, "Please, have mercy on me. I'm sorry," as he tries to gasp for air and keeps his head above water. Mila turns away. "If you can't save yourself, you are not worthy of your title or your life." She walks away as Winston drowns beneath the ocean depths. The other 6 commanders kneel before Mila. "Let this be a reminder. If anyone dares challenge Cornelia or myself, let them dig their own hole and bury themselves in it." There was fear in the air, but order was restored. Mila was never challenged again. Winston awoke shocked. He looked to see himself being able to walk on crystalline waters. A demonic voice rings out. "Commander Winston, oh, how the mighty have fallen. Such a waste. They never saw you, but I do." Winston composed himself and demanded, "Reveal yourself." "No. If I did that, you would be of no use to me. Embrace me, and I shall grant you life in my image. You will return to your world, be a devourer in my name." "Why should I even consider this, fiend?" said Winston. Because if you don't, I will have to devour your soul, replied the Dark One. Winston approached the corrupted waters, pulling out his weapon in hand. Regal awoke to find himself on top of strange crystalline waters. And he is cut off by a demonic voice underneath the waters. Black tentacles grab his arms and legs and lift Regal up. Such a fool, such a fool. You gave your life to me, but unfortunate for you, you are soulless. Just devouring you would be empty to me. You only have a fragment of a soul. Elder's doing. You are of no use to me. The Dark One hurls Regal with all his strength out of the crystalline waters. Regal wakes up on a beach, scratching his head in bewilderment. He looks down at his hands. So even dark entities think I'm worthless. He sits down on the sand, feeling more emptiness than ever. Mila talks with her father, Commander Jonas. What you did with your cousin was an interesting maneuver, said Commander Jonas. Oh, please, he was asking for it. Winston could never hold a candle to truer members of our family like me or you, Mila replied. Jonas says, have you thought about marriage? Mila choked up a little bit. Dad, why would I ever want to marry? What would be the benefit? Besides, no man has been impressive enough. Jonas replied, and none of them have been able to take me on in one-on-one combat. Both Jonas and Mila share a laugh. The starship returns as Cornelia steps out. Mila rushes to kneel before Cornelia. How did your meeting go, your Imperial Radiance? Cornelia replied with a smile. Once I revealed myself and made the necessary arrangements, they all fell into line. One of the poor fools tried to propose to me. He was too insistent, so he got thrown out the airlock. Both Jonas and Mila looked at each other and then back at Cornelia. Where is Commander Winston? Cornelia inquired. Mila replied, he retired. Let's just say he saw the error of his actions and decided to quit. Cornelia says, how interesting, though not surprising. Out of all the commanders, Winston gave me the most doubts. Cornelia continues, the Infinity Empire is back in business. Back on the lost battlefield where the Order of Light made a last stand, Zero awakens glowing with a purple aura. Where am I at? Why is my head pounding? Ugh! A shockwave is sent all around Zero's body. An apparition manifested before Zero's own cat-like eyes. It took the form of a human with black hair and dark skin. You must help me. My soul is trapped here in the dark. No, I only serve Emperor. He'd be very angry if I gave my service to someone else, Zero replied. Emperor is dead, my boy. Haven't you heard? His daughter Cornelia has taken over. My name is Morper, and you are, Morper says. Zero reacts with a mix of shock, horror, and anger. Who killed him? Damon, Morper replied. My brother? No. No! Zero shouts. Zero, in his rage, flies very fast, attempting to locate Damon. Damon and Shadowlugia tense up and prepare for battle. Zero says with a creepy smile, There you are, brother. Fresh meat. With no hesitation or wasting time, Zero uses his psychic powers to deal a deadly blow to both Damon and Shadowlugia, concentrating all his rage and powers to their heads. Shadowlugia and Damon fall to the ground. A large rumbling is made as Shadowlugia falls last. Zero says in shock, Did I do that? Morper appears shrouded in a mist. You had the capability, but no, You did not. I'm sorry, Zero. Well, I wish I could grant you a reward. I've made an unfortunate bargain for my survival. A dark, pale man appears, shrouded in a black aura appears out of the forest, looking exhausted and drained. He wastes no time in sucking out Zero's soul into him. The results made him younger and more vibrant. The Dark One will be most pleased. You're an idiot, Morper says, having sold control of Zero, having sold control of Zero's, stole control of Zero's Dark Mew body. There's no way to greet, that's no way to greet the emissary of the Dark One. My name is Winston, by the way. Winston lifts his hands, and all the blood from Shadow Lugia and Damon go towards Dark Mew. The blood surrounds Dark Mew, remaking Dark Mew into a human body. Winston throws some clothes to Morper. Get ready. We have a job to do. Morper replies, You know the Dark One will consume everything. It was never meant to have an actual emissary. The last emissary was a couple thousand years ago. I had to destroy him. It was busy work. Winston glares at Morper, then smiles and takes his leave, beckoning Morper to follow. Morper follows, his face mixed with a little bit of fear but mostly annoyance. Regal feels and hears the rumbling. He makes haste as he notices the direction is coming from Shadow Lugia and Damon. Regal falls to his knees in anguish, witnessing the cold embrace taking over both Shadow Lugia and Damon's vessels. Their warmth gone, their life extinguished. Regal felt nothing but isolation and coldness. Cornelia approaches Regal. He looked so familiar, but she couldn't put on her finger on how familiar. She didn't have time to make guesses, so she walked up to him and asked, Are you Regal? Regal slumped over and replied, Yes, that's me. He choked a little on those words, feeling shame. Cornelia's expression changed from curiosity to certainty. I am Empress Cornelia of the Infinity Empire, and you are under arrest for high regicide. Regal says nothing as starships appear out of the sky, and a couple soldiers come in to grab Regal. Take him to our base, Cornelia commanded. The soldiers salute as they drag Regal away. Cornelia looks puzzled as she sees Shadow Lugia and a Celebi lifeless being dragged on into the ground. She thought to herself, could Regal have done this? She then walks away from the scene. Morper looks unamused as Winston sucks the souls out of two Pikachus, leaving both Pikachu soulless on the ground. You're enjoying this too much. You know way too much. You know that, right? Morper rolls his eyes. Winston says, So how did you know Cornelia is Empress? That knowledge is not widely known. The elder whispers even now. Can you hear him? Morper replied, I can. It's like an annoyance, like a gnat, Winston growls. Winston hears the dark voices of the Dark One. Well, Morper, this is where we part ways. The Dark One is satisfied and amused at your service. However, if we meet again, we will devour your soul. Morper takes his leave, vanishing into thin air, reappearing at Cornelia's HQ. The trial has already begun, in a fitting makeshift courtroom to decide Regal's fate. Regal said nothing as the courtroom murmured. Cornelia, the defendant doesn't wish to speak. Very well. Regal, you stand today accused of high regicide, a capital offense. If you are found guilty, you will not be coming back. Who here wishes to defend the accused? As Cornelia says this, Morper enters the room. I will. Regal and I go way back. Let me introduce myself. My name is Morper. I have proof Regal did nothing wrong. Cornelia is taken aback. You knew my father? You must know he was killed. By Regal. Morper replies he was not. He killed himself. There were legendary Pokemon that would have helped resurrect you, your Imperial Radiance, but they fled, and you know he has the ultimate power. Morper shows the evidence in the video clip taken at the scene. The video also shows Regal leaving the scene while Emperor plunged himself with the Infinity Dagger. Cornelia looks at the footage with intrigue, though not surprised. She smiled faintly at her father's last moments, a reminder of his love that he would give his life for hers. Regal, I hereby drop all charges against you. You are free to go. Release him, Cornelia ordered. As this happens, the makeshift courtroom is interrupted by Winston as dark clouds appear above the sky. Mila looks surprised. With surprise, but she and her guards quickly approach Winston and summon their Pokemon. Oh, fresh meat! Winston laughs, inhaling Mila, the guards, and their Pokemon's souls. Cornelia cries out in English as she witnesses Mila slumped over. Regal steps forth, confronting Winston. He lunges at him, but Winston sees his coming and uses his energy to slice off Regal's left arm. Regal keels to the ground, crying in pain, holding what is left of his left arm. Morper steps forth, but as he does this, the Elder Spirit seizes him and takes over. Winston, you are a plague on the natural order. Winston, Elder, you have a date with doom. He lunges at Morper and the two connect blows. Cornelia rushes to Regal's side. You resemble my father. I see now, but you are not him. No, I'm afraid you got the wrong guy. I am Regal, only a fraction of a soul. Regal coughs, looking down at himself. As Regal says this, a bunch of legendary Pokemon rush towards him. All the legendary Pokemon in existence lend him a fraction of their souls. I feel warm, Regal says as his left arm grows back. Regal lifts up off the ground, transforms his aura, shifts to many colors. Too many colors to count. The emanating shockwaves outside of Regal's body are very powerful. He has become Rainbow Regal. Winston turns away from Morper and goes after Rainbow Regal. Winston, for your crimes against humanity and Pokemon alike, I hereby render judgment. Rainbow Regal opens his left hand and blasts Winston with such intensity it destroys his physical body and erases his soul. No! Shouted Winston as he succumbed. Rainbow Regal turns towards Morper. I know who you are. Morper only replied, anything for my little princess. Rainbow Regal uses what is left of his energy and sacrifices himself. Mason awakens, finding himself in a hospital bed. What happened? Before he could get an answer, he looked at his hands. They were his hands again, his human hands. Before he could be happy, however, his hands glowed with a purple aura. This troubled Mason, so he hid his hands. The doctors released Mason. He returned to work and was the happiest he has ever been. Everything changed and Mason was finally at peace. The end. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one.